Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I'm Billy Embody. It is battle for the Iron Skillet week, SMU versus TCU. But first, SMU did get a commitment this week from one of the area's top players, but I've got even bigger news to share. That's right. My wife, Michelle, and I are expecting our first child in March. So really excited about that. I want to appreciate all the people who have reached out and said congratulations and giving advice and all of that, but we are excited. So lots going on in the Embody household as we prepare for our first child to come through. Couldn't be happier, but did want to share that. We shared that on the board and on social media this week. So it'll be a fun time. So never a better time to tell you guys that we are running our Iron Skillet Week special at ontheponyexpress.com. You can subscribe for 50% off annual subscriptions to our site. And let me tell you, you're going to want to jump on board quickly because SMU is red hot in recruiting. And before we preview SMU TCU, we've got to jump into the big news that dropped this week. And that is DeSoto linebacker Brandon Booker making the call to commit to SMU. The 2024 linebacker was a one-time Baylor commit, then committed to Stanford this summer before backing off that pledge early this senior season. And for Brandon Booker, he's somebody that I've known for a long time. That profile picture you see if you're watching on our YouTube channel, took that picture coming up on 2 years ago, which is pretty wild to think about. But for Brandon Booker to end up at SMU is one, a sign that the ACC move in recruiting is paying off. And I'm almost finished up with a big article on that for ontheponyexpress.com. But him staying home is a big recruiting win at a position where you lose Chris Adamora after this season. You already have Zach Smith as your 2024 linebacker commit. And SMU was kind of in a position where, all right, now that you're in the ACC, it's probably a position you want to address more. And they do that with Brandon Booker, somebody that I like his closing speed a lot. They send him off the edge. They put him in coverage. He has a knack for forcing fumbles. He's a gamer, and I really enjoy watching him play. I saw him a couple times, including in that state championship game for DeSoto. They're gunning for a second straight state title under Claude Mathis, the former SMU running backs coach, who leads the Eagles over there, the school that gave SMU James Prochet as well. So DeSoto has been good to SMU, and that also is a second commitment on this current Eagles team, which is joined by Davion Singleton, the four-star 2025 wide receiver that is committed to the Mustangs. And they're going to keep pushing at that school. It's one of the state's best programs. For SMU to reel in Brandon Booker, I think this is a sign that they still want to address that linebacker position with a player of this quality. He had offers from LSU, Texas A&M, all over the country. But he visited SMU for the spring game, commits to Baylor quickly after that. I think it was the next day. So then you get into the summer, and he was really high on Stanford. They opted to take his commitment. And then going into his senior season, he ends up deciding, you know what, I can play in the ACC and play for SMU. And they never let up here. He's one of those guys that they would have taken a commitment from really no matter what. They view him that highly. So I'm looking forward to seeing him in person next month when Duncanville and DeSoto play in one of these states and really countries' top high school games this season that you're going to find. So look for number 31 out there, Brandon Booker. He's a fun kid, really nice kid, kind of not goofy, but goofy in a way. So I always enjoy catching up with him. He's one of my favorites in this 2024 class, just from a personality perspective. And he's not afraid to bring that physicality as well. And I think he's going to be one of those guys that we look at and maybe we see him rise up a little bit more as the rest of the season goes, as far as his rankings on the services. But pretty much everybody has him as a high 3-star right now. So a really nice pickup, has the offers, has that winning mentality that SMU is trying to bring in. So anytime you can get into a program like DeSoto and bring in a kid like Brandon Booker, it's good news for SMU. That does push them up in average recruit ranking. They're now 12th in the ACC. We have moved them over to the future conference for the Mustangs in terms of the rankings. So saw that as well. And that's what you want. You want to have that quality. SMU does have a small class. I expect that to change in 2025, which is a class that continues to roll. We will pass along what's next for SMU on the recruiting trail at ontheponyexpress.com. So be sure to subscribe. Again, 50% off annual subscription. So about $50 for 12 months gets you all the way into next season, the first season of the ACC. So it's a good time to jump on board. We've had a ton of people jump on board. If you might be smart to just ask one of your SMU friends if they're on the board. We've had that many people jump on board with us. So it's been an exciting time in that respect too. When it comes to everything that I have going on in my life right now, with our baby on the way, getting the house ready, we're going to start touring the daycares. I'm on the road going to high school games. I'm headed down to Houston tonight. Eating a quality meal is really, really tough. And that's why I'm thrilled to announce one of our new partners at ontheponyexpress.com, and that is HelloFresh. And I've talked with a lot of people about this when we first kind of contacted them in terms of bringing them on board. And this was a no-brainer. And I it's been a minute in terms of this being locked in. We had to get our sample orders and all of that, and they came really quickly through their door-to-door delivery that they offer. And so this was the perfect time for us to kickstart a fresh fall routine with HelloFresh. HelloFresh handles all the meal planning and shopping to deliver everything you need to cook up a tasty meal right at home. They do the hard part, and you get to take the credit. And my wife had a call going on, and meanwhile, I was cooking up in the kitchen our pork tenderloin, couscous, green beans. Obviously, she knows it's HelloFresh, but you could fool me with some of this stuff. It's that high quality, and it took me about probably 28 minutes, including heating the oven up to get it done. So pretty easy as well. And when it comes to options, honestly, more is more. That's why HelloFresh's menu includes 40 recipes and over 100 add-on items to choose from every week. So as we get deeper into this, I'm looking forward to exploring that menu. We had a couple other things this week that were really, really good as well. And again, for me, when it comes to my personal experience, I love to cook. I really do. And this is fun because it gives you that added bonus of actually learning to cook something new here, and I can replicate it in the future as well, which is nice. So all of those things when it comes to HelloFresh, and it's really quality food and quality ingredients and all of those things. And they have different kind of categories you can pick from in terms of what you're looking for. So they do a terrific job. So we've got a promo code for you guys. Go to HelloFresh.com/50pony and use code 50pony for 50% off plus 15% off the next 2 months. That's 50, the number 50, pony as your promo code for 50% off plus 15% off the next 2 months. And look, HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit, is here for you. Try it today. Go to HelloFresh.com/50pony and use code 50pony for 50% off plus 15% off the next 2 months. Can't beat that. So appreciate HelloFresh for jumping on with On the Pony Express. It is SMU TCU game week, and the Mustangs were back on the practice field preparing for this one on Tuesday and Wednesday. We were able to catch some practice with the Mustangs. And the big question this week, after a Prairie View A&M game where SMU did hold out some of their players for that one in obviously a 69-0 beatdown of Prairie View A&M, how would the team look physically from an injury standpoint? And Justin Osborne is back at practice with a heavy tape on his ankle, and that's something to keep an eye on. I think that him practicing both days is at least a good sign that he's going to give it a go. And as SMU gets into game day, it's going to be a total feel thing, because I felt like on Wednesday he looked better than he did on Tuesday moving around. But he does have to obviously play on it and be explosive and be able to move guys off the ball. I mean, TCU does have Dominic Williams in the middle, a big defensive tackle. That's a problem. at times for opposing teams. And if SMU is going to run the football, that's something that the Mustangs have to be able to get the most out of their offensive linemen. They can't be, playing with four offensive linemen in that sense. A guy trying to gut it out through injury. So the good thing for SMU, Cam Irving back. He did play against Prairie View A&M. They also have Logan Parr, Ben Sparks, PJ Williams. All of those guys are options for SMU. The Mustangs did hold out Marcus Bryant, but he's been back at practice. He doesn't look like it doesn't look like there's anything wrong with him from that left tackle perspective, which is good news for SMU because, look, they're going to have to contain a guy like Jamoy Hodge. They're going to have to contain a Dominic Williams. Those are guys that do have some of that playmaking ability for TCU to really be a problem. And Johnny Hodges is obviously an issue as well. And I feel like looking at this game, SMU has the opportunity to control this one. And I think a lot of it starts with SMU's defense being up to snuff this year. This isn't a defense that, at least through 3 weeks, is looking like a problem for SMU. They're looking like a strength. And somebody asked me, I was on with SiriusXM this morning, and I was asked, what's the strength of this SMU team? And I said, it's the defense. I mean, when you look at their defensive backfield and what they've been able to do with adding guys like Chris Meganson and Charles Woods, Jonathan McGill to go along with a Brian Massey, a Brandon Crosley, a CJ Sanders they added, Ahmad Moses is back, all of those things. This is a group that has allowed a little bit more time for that defensive line to get home. And at the same token, you have this defensive line that is pretty special as well. They have a lot of talent up front with their size and athleticism in Jordan Miller and Elijah Roberts and Elijah Chapman and DeVere Levelston, Corey Roberson, Nelson Paul, Cam Robertson, Isaiah Smith. All these guys are making impacts for SMU. And this SMU defense is being platooned on and off the field. I know it sounds like, oh, well, if you've got all that depth, you don't have, proven difference makers and things like that. No, I think this defense, the way they're able to take advantage of that depth is helping them move up the ranks. They're top 40 in yards per play. They're right around top 25 in terms of total yardage. But I like the yards per play a little bit more. It just, Oklahoma had 2 short fields, which is, part of football. It happens for everybody, but yards per play is a better indicator. And if SMU can be safely in that top 40 in terms of yards per play, that's a good piece of news for SMU. So they don't have really any injuries from what it seems like. Brandon Crosley was back at practice in a red jersey, which is good news for SMU, as he was held out really more so for precaution for TCU. But he was back at practice this week as well. So look, for SMU, they're going to need everybody. They're going to need everybody to make a difference and step up and do all of those things because they have a tough opponent on their hands in TCU. They have an opponent that can absolutely make life difficult for this defense with some of the different matchup issues they present. But this is a defense that has the depth to really make everything that they want to kind of happen. And so I'm really intrigued if they can contain Chandler Morris. They have a good shot to win this ball game. And they want to kind of make Amani Bailey, who's very, very talented, beat them. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think SMU's shown at times, and again, OU had some success with Tawee Walker, for example, but Marcus Major was generally held in check. If SMU wants to make one player beat them, I would kind of be okay with Amani Bailey being that guy. The only thing is how much does that run game make you think in the secondary, okay, who comes to run? And then all of a sudden you're getting beat for an explosive play. The key for SMU's defense this week is limiting the explosive play. Last year, 270, I think, plus yard explosive plays changed the course of the game and were able to beat SMU. That's the difference in the ball game in a one-score game. And we'll get to the offense in a bit in terms of what their keys are, because there are some things from last year that they've got to right in terms of the ship. but SMU being able to limit explosive plays, which I think they've done a fairly good job at, would go a long way in this one just overall, because SMU does have that secondary where they've rolled enough. Look, I think my concern is when Oklahoma dialed up a couple key play calls in terms of scheming up guys that needed to get open. You look at the first touchdown, that was a bust. That was corrected from what Scott Simon said. It was also, partly on him for not getting the play call in quick enough. Then you look at the last touchdown, I think it was, and it was just a great move, just an absolutely great move by Jalil Farouk to make it happen. And so there are moments where SMU has broken down here and there, and I think the safeties want to clean a couple things up, and I think they've got a chance to do that. They're a little bit more comfortable together now. Playing with a Jonathan McGill and rotating and doing some of the different things that they do. That it's one of those things where maybe they can get it done and limit this TCU offense. And talking with some TCU beat writers this week, I've done a podcast, Frogs Insider. I've done the Locked On Frogs podcast. I've talked to some of the other media members, and this is a TCU team that has questions at wide receiver. Savion Williams hasn't exactly been that stud that they needed. John Paul Richardson is a guy, Oklahoma State transfer, who has made some news talking about the rivalry, but leads the team in receiving. They've got Jared Wiley. They've got some pieces, and especially Jared Wiley, a really good tight end, but they haven't seen it all come together yet. Colorado week 1, you can look at that game from the vacuum of, well, Deion Sanders has done a really nice job with Colorado. But you can also look at it from, well, it is week 1. Is that really TCU? Is it giving up 40-plus points? Is it churning up almost 600 yards of offense? Are they that bad in the red zone? All of those things. They went down to Houston and handled business against a Houston team that I don't think is that good. But offensively, they can move the ball. They haven't been able to finish in the red zone very much. Chandler Morris did have 2 bad turnovers in the red zone against Colorado. But what he can do is he can pick up yards with his legs. And I think that's a concern for SMU's defense. This is a defense that did give that up a little bit with Dylan Gabriel. I think Chandler's a little quicker. He's not an incredible athlete, but he is good and shifty in that sense, which I think maybe can present some problems if SMU doesn't break down and tackle. Looking at safeties, Brian Massey, Brandon Crosley, they might be the keys to the game defensively for SMU. Obviously, pass rush would be great and all those things. But if those guys are put in tough positions where they're in coverage, they need to break away from coverage. Oh, there's my guy. They're in a tough position. Anytime you have a quarterback that does what Chandler Morris can do from a scrambling ability, you can be in some tough positions. SMU has to stay disciplined in that regard, but they also have to tackle. When they have an opportunity to get them on the ground, it has to happen to try and limit some of those plays that he likes to do, picking things up. So SMU's defense is the strength of this team right now. And until somebody explodes and has a huge day offensively, I think you've got to like where this defense sits. You want them to continue to improve their tackling, which they continue to work on. But it's not as obvious as it was last year because they're playing with better depth, better effort. They're fresher. They can play harder because of that. And I think we're seeing that pay off a good bit. I tell you, though, one thing they haven't done much of is get takeaways. And this is a critical week. If you're looking for a time to get a takeaway for SMU's defense, this would be a heck of a time to win the turnover battle against TCU, because that turnover battle was critical last year as well in Ford Stadium. So you might be wondering, guys, I am wearing a SMU shirt, and I don't normally do that at all. But we have another new partner on the podcast, and it's Red and West. And this is funny timing on this because we were just at SMU OU, and this is a company that actually started really as an Oklahoma brand. They had OU, a lot of it was basically all OU gear. They started in Norman, and they started Red and West because they loved the pictures of old college football coaches wearing, and they wanted to wear the same styles of shirts that they did. And there's that photo of Ron Meyer handing 2 footballs off to Craig James and Eric Dickerson. and they've tried to reproduce that photo in the polo and all of those things. But they have updated that look that you see, and they updated it with that breathable um, fabric that pretty much all polos have nowadays, with just that ability to breathe a little bit better. And the thing I like about Red and West is they have a really good price point. So when we discussed doing this, they they said, we do free shipping already. We have a really competitively priced polo, and let's just let it ride, and people will see the quality that we put this together with. They're a small family owned business, and all of their products ship out of Norman. And look, I had a great time in Norman, got a lot of friends that are OU folks, and that's how we actually got hooked up, as they're expanding their line, and they're going to have hats in the future and more SMU gear. But they started with the red and the white polos, and for me, again, they're a different look. You don't see this very often with these type of polos, but to have this very you know throwback look, it's pretty cool right now to have. I think people are really embracing it, and I love that they updated it to that breathable fabric. So they're going to be creating more apparel for SMU. They just started in 2018, making one product for one school. A lot of my OU friends have Red and West gear, and they've really jumped on that bandwagon, I guess, or schooner, so to speak. But for SMU to now have a Red and West representation is big, and the team there has guys in the DFW area, so I've been able to work with them closely on this. I'm really excited to put this all together with them. So they're going to be a sponsor for us throughout the 2023 season, and we hope you guys will check them out and get this Red and West gear that they've broken out, because it's really, really high quality. It is just, again, a great family owned business that I'm excited to partner with. So go to redandwest.com. And if you have any questions about sizing or anything else, you can email them at gameday@redandwest.com, and they'll get you all squared away. And again, give them some feedback on what you want to see for SMU in 2024, because they're going to be making that as well. So just want to show off my new shirt. I know I don't usually side or whatever, but man, this polo is great. Love it. And so looking forward to working with Red and West in the future. So check them out. And if you do get a chance to say on the Pony Express sent you, do that for us, please. So check them out, redandwest.com. We flip over to the offensive side of the ball for SMU, and this is a team that is coming off of pretty smooth performance for the most part against Prairie View A&M. They scored 9 offensive touchdowns. Obviously, the blocked field goal last week was the other one. But to score that number of touchdowns is impressive no matter who you're playing. And I think there was some kind of choppiness to the offense, a little bit. They had their second drive ended by an interception, which was kind of just thrown behind Roger Daniels by Preston and pops up in the air. They get an interception. And I mean, you just got to put it on them. And so that's probably the only thing that really, you look at and you're like, oh, that wasn't too great. But, I like what SMU was able to do, running the football. Even I just think getting back to that commitment on the ground was important. Kamar Wheaton averaged almost 5 yards a carry. Tyler Levine came in and averaged almost 6. They obviously, that we talked about on the post game show, but they held out Jalen Knight and Velton Gardner due to suspension. LJ Johnson did get nicked up early in the game, and he finished with 4 carries for 4 yards and came out. And so that is something we're watching very closely. He was working off to the side with trainers at practice this week. And so he's going to be, I would say, questionable for this week from what we've seen. So that is very important as far as watching that unfold, and we'll see kind of what happens there with him. But this is a big opportunity for this SMU offense to show why they have all the pieces to be a championship winning offense. And I think the world of what Preston Stone has done, waiting his time, waiting for this moment. This is his coming out party. This has to be his coming out party. And it doesn't mean he has to throw for 500 yards. It doesn't mean he has to throw for 6 touchdowns. He has to hit the opportunities that are potential game-changing moments. And when you think about Preston Stone's demeanor and his passion, all of those things have put him in this position to be SMU's starting quarterback and have this opportunity ahead of him. But he's also just, his fourth career start coming up. And we need to see him make kind of that game-changing play. He has had some incredible throws throughout the course of this season already. I'd like to see them just take another step up when it comes to the deep ball or just fitting something in a tight area a little quicker. That's what you're going to have to do against this TCU defense. I'd like to see SMU go very aggressive and test Josh Newton. I'd like to see them really test Avery Helm, the Florida transfer. I think that is one of those calling cards of how Rhett Lashley has been able to succeed calling plays for SMU, is being aggressive. And again, I'm not going to belabor the point. I don't think they need to be cute this week. I'm okay with a traditional trick play kind of deal. But some of these, the reverses, and maybe TCU doesn't have the team speed this year to do this and defend this. Maybe it's very different from Oklahoma. So that could be something there. But the reverses, the jet flips, the things that haven't worked this year for SMU, maybe this is the game that they stay in the playbook and let Preston Stone, let this offense just go to work. The flea flicker against Oklahoma. Oklahoma had been disciplined all game. They'd open the second half. They try that, set them up 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 12 because Preston scrambled and lost a couple yards. It sets you up behind the chains. And SMU had opportunities to make just the simple plays and move the ball. And they had done that too. So this week, again, Joe Gillespie's defense is very simple. It's 3 or 4 calls. They will kind of mix a couple things up, but not much. And they're going to rely on their fundamentals and discipline to defend you. And so for Preston Stone, he's going to have to anticipate windows well. This offensive line, you'd love to see them have their assignments down very well to, build off a double and get to the second level, to seal a guy the right way, to have the tight end set up the right angle to allow the running back to make a move and get upfield. All those things, all those little things that haven't fully clicked too often for SMU in the run game or in the offense in general. This is the week that it would be critical to make it all happen. And so for Preston Stone to have an opportunity to have this coming out party, which if he comes out and does basically what he did against Oklahoma, but hit an explosive play or two, that is a quarterback that probably has done enough to win you the game. And I'd like to see Preston Stone take that step. I think Prairie View A&M opponent, whatever, talk about that. That was the right step in the right direction for Preston Stone, for Jordan Hudson. He was back healthy. Jordan Curley back healthy, had a big game. They had a lot of people kind of get their feet wet in terms of making plays for this offense. And they probably have a little bit of confidence cooking off of that. And so it's important for SMU to continue to build off of that and keep that going because this is a group that has the playmakers. It has a lot of the talent to make everything happen that it wants to. And if it doesn't, I think this defense is going to keep them in the game. But I think it's time the offense really capitalizes on opportunities and goes into Fort Worth and does some damage. This is a TCU defense that has some of the guys that can make a difference, Josh Newton, guys like that. But I think the overall team speed is something that Colorado was able to expose, and SMU has a lot of that. I mean, I'd love to see Roderick Daniels, Jake Bailey a little bit more on the field together even. I mean, that's a type of issues those two guys could create. So I don't know if it'll happen. I'm just kind of speaking in general because I thought Colorado just exposed TCU's defense in a big way and kind of how to attack it. So I wonder how much SMU's watching that film. But look, we're going to be able to watch it at 11 a.m. Central on FS1 and see what Rhett Lashley has cooked up. He was the offense coordinator for that 2019 game. I didn't think he called a bad game against TCU last year, but those back-breaking turnovers just kill you when you have those. So that is something to keep an eye on as SMU goes through it. Another thing to keep an eye on is ticket prices. And to do that, you got to use our friends at Game Time, gametime.co, or download the Game Time app to get the latest and greatest ticket deals. And buying tickets to the Battle for the Iron Skillet or any of your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. I tell you what, guys, personal experience here. SMU TCU has kind of been a tough ticket to get, just talking to a bunch of people. But now you're seeing maybe on Game Time it pop up a little bit more, but it's still expensive. Well, guess what? Somebody bought tickets the other day on another site. I'm not going to say it, but they bought them. And I said, well, why didn't you use Game Time? Could use promo code PONY and get $20 off your first purchase. They go, oh, I've just completely forgot. Well, would have saved you $20 and you wouldn't have paid as much money for those SMU TCU tickets. And that's also because the Game Time guarantee means that you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. It's the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason, and the official ticketing app of On3 and on theponyexpress.com. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code PONY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account, redeem code PONY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So as we close out this edition of the podcast, prediction time and keys to the game, I think for me, the keys to the game in this one are simple. SMU or TCU, whoever capitalizes in the red zone with touchdowns are going to have the best chance to win. I've seen a lot of both teams. Red zone seems to be the bugaboo for TCU. Same thing with SMU, kind of that lack of finishing consistently, I think is really what SMU is watching for when it comes to the red zone. SMU has to take advantage of those opportunities. SMU needs to get more out of its kicking game if called upon. A clutch 47-yard field goal when called upon would be nice from Colin Rogers. He hasn't made a long kick this season. So SMU needs to be able to finish offensively. They need to take care of the football. They need to win the turnover battle. An extra possession, maybe two, would go a long way against this TCU offense that will put some pressure on SMU. Kendall Browse is a good offensive coordinator. TCU had some success last year against SMU, but this SMU defense has the depth, has the talent to make this a very different looking game from last year. Remember, last year, SMU TCU in 2022 ended up a 42-34 game. The jumping over the long snapper penalty that SMU got called for ended the game instead of giving the Mustangs an opportunity to score a final touchdown and send it to overtime. Playing clean, playing within yourself. I think SMU, most importantly, learned a lot from last season's emotional outburst against Sonny Dykes, because that's what it was. I mean, they came out trying to do way too much, and then they settled down and they were able to get back to playing football. They were able to mount a comeback and make it a game. This week, I expect them to be in a little bit better situation from a headspace perspective. So I think SMU is going to get it done. I really do. I think they're going to be able to take home the Iron Skillet. I think they're going to win 31-27. I think this is a game where we always tend to see a field goal or two, but SMU is going to be able to do just that and come away with the win. I think, like I said against Oklahoma, it's funny the way the game worked out. I felt like if SMU could either hold OU, and at that time we didn't really know too much about the offense, but I felt like if SMU could hold OU to under 30, they'd have a shot. I mean, granted, they had a shot regardless, but I feel the same about TCU. If SMU can hold TCU to under 30, they've got a real good shot. It's about capitalizing on opportunities. I think SMU has a more complete team right now than TCU. The question is are we going to see a talent disparity overall enough to allow the Horned Frogs to keep the Iron Skillet in Fort Worth? There's a lot of questions about this TCU team, but I think SMU is up to the task from a veteran leadership perspective. I think they're going to play with a little bit better mindset in this one, and they'll be able to take their shot at the Horned Frogs, bring home the Iron Skillet 31-27. So, quick reminder, guys, we'll be back on the Boulevard next weekend. Be sure to order the official game ball of SMU. Go to biggameusa.com. Use promo code BEON3 for 10% off your order plus free shipping. Had a bunch of these fly off the shelves since we've partnered with Big Game USA, but wanted to remind you guys, check them out. The official game ball of SMU football. You can check it out. If you're going to the Iron Skillet, go see what the balls they're using look like on the field. Preston Stone, Kevin Jennings, they designed those. So check them out, biggameusa.com. Find the SMU football and use promo code BEON3 for 10% off your order plus free shipping. With that, guys, going to wrap up this edition of the podcast. We will have a lot more to cover in our post-game podcast on the After Stang show, so be sure to check that out. Appreciate all you guys who have subscribed to the site this week. We've seen a huge uptick in subscribers. Again, taking advantage of the Iron Skillet special, 50% off annual subscriptions to ontheponyexpress.com. Lots of recruiting scoop on there for you guys. I am headed out to back-to-back high school games Thursday, Friday, and then bright and early, 11 a.m. Central on FS1 for the battle for the Iron Skillet. It'll be SMU TCU in the 102nd meeting of that game. We'll be there for full coverage of it. So appreciate you guys listening, and we'll catch you after the game with the After Stang show.